Before we get into today's segment, as most of you already know, I'm no longer ever allowed back on YouTube. Forever. So the Daily Show is now here on BitChute. This is the main channel with the Red Elephants logo. This is the only channel we'll be posting on every single day. And then live Monday through Friday on dlive.tv/Vincent James. Link in the description if you'd like to follow over there to get notified for when I am live streaming. And if you'd like access to all of the exclusive content, access to the Discord, and access to all of the full-length live streams after we are live, you can get those on either Patreon or Subscribestar at the middle tier. They're both basically the same platform, but the entire show now relies completely on your support. In Chicago, the FBI is warning that a gang cabal, a group of gangs who have formed a pact, may be targeting Chicago Police Department officers. And here's what this report says. This is from ABC 7 News. It says, a federal intelligence alert obtained by the ABC 7 I-team has gone out to Chicago area law enforcement with an ominous warning. Nearly 3 dozen cold-blooded street gangs have formed a pact to shoot on sight any cop that has a weapon drawn on any subject in public. The Situational Information Report from FBI officials in Chicago dated August 26, 2020 states, members of these gang factions have been actively searching for and filming police officers in performance of their official duties, the purpose of which is to catch on film any officer drawing his or her weapon on any subject and the subsequent shoot on sight of said officer in order to garner national media attention. Alerts based on police intelligence, no matter how unspecific, are frequently distributed to law enforcement agencies, according to investigators, especially when they involve threats to officers. The FBI's potential activity alert is from a contact whose reporting is limited and whose reliability cannot be determined. I can't see this. Got to zoom in here. That could mean the information came from a police street source, a cooperating witness in an ongoing case, or from discussions overheard on a wiretap or other surveillance recording. For CPD Superintendent David Brown, there is an overall sense of lawlessness currently being dealt with by those who serve and protect. Although not commenting directly on the FBI alert, Brown on Monday said the danger to police officers is real and increasing. Now, it doesn't go on to actually list the different gangs involved in this pact that was formed to shoot police officers on sight if they are pulling a gun, if they're pulling their gun out of the holster. But knowing the history of the Chicago Police Department, and especially the recent history of the Chicago Police Department, and them cooperating with or working with almost Hispanic gangs and Latino gangs in the area in order to sort of root out the Black Lives Matter rioters and protesters from the Hispanic communities and Hispanic neighborhoods, to protect the Hispanic neighborhoods. I mean, this was one of the major goals talked about by a lot of these Hispanic gangs, like the Latin Kings and other Hispanic gangs in the area. Knowing that history, knowing that recent history, I don't think that this would be like Hispanic gangs that would be doing this, right? It would probably be the black gangs in the city of Chicago that have formed this pact that states that shoot officers on sight if they are pulling a weapon out in the open. But again, not to worry, because thankfully, the Cook County Sheriff's Department has permanently dismantled their gangs database after activists like Alma Anaya called for the dismantling of the gangs database in the city of Chicago because it was racially biased, because it contained too many people of color. So now they have this pact that has been formed that tells gang members to shoot officers on sight if they pull a weapon, but they can't track the gangs. They can't track the gangs because they have given that up. They have given up their ability, their tool, in order to track these gang members down and arrest these gang members as they're committing crimes, or track them in general. Someone says Hispanics run into op? Maybe. Possibly. We also have this tweet here. just in addition to the lawlessness that we're talking about and the rewarding of lawlessness, this is from Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey. He said, quote, "I just signed legislation criminalizing false race-based 911 calls." This sounds very familiar, and it should, because we've seen this in many cities already so far. "Misusing our 911 system to intimidate people of color is an abhorrent form of discrimination, and those who do so will now be held accountable." So we have this story here from a USA Today affiliate, northjersey.com, and it says, race-based 911 calls can now be charged as bias crime, can now be charged as a hate crime in New Jersey. Murphy says, it says, false race-based 911 calls can now be charged as a bias crime after Governor Phil Murphy signed the legislation into law on Monday. The bill is meant to criminalize the use of 911 to intimidate or harass people of color and others who may be discriminated against, Murphy said in his statement. Who's making this judgment, though? Who's making this decision? Who's the person that gets to say that this was like a race-based 911 call, or they are being racist for calling 911 on us? Right? If a black person is committing a crime, or if you're fearful that said black person will commit a crime against you and you call 911, but they haven't committed the crime yet, but they are showing signs that they might commit a crime against you or might attack you, but they haven't yet, and you call 911 on this person, and they claim that this 911 call was racist, what then? You see how this can end up badly? This can end up very badly, and we see many cities passing legislation just like this. I mean, what if and we can take the park, for instance, and I think this is where this sort of all stems from. Actually, I've seen stories like this prior to that Central Park story, where the woman was confronted by this black bird watcher, who said something along the lines of, "You're not going to like what happens next." And they were alone in this park. It was only him and only her, and it was this female, of course, who's much smaller, who's much weaker than this particular person, and he said, verbatim, "You are not going to like what happens next." And this was prior to her 911 call. Now, it doesn't seem like the guy was actually going to do something. He probably wasn't going to do something. But what if the guy was going to do something? What if the guy said, and was just some random black guy who was in the park with this woman, and out of nowhere, he starts talking to her, and they get into somewhat of an argument, and she's trying to walk away, and he says, "You're not going to like what happens next." And she calls 911, and the police are right there down the block, and they show up very quickly. And then this black man says, "Well, this was a race-based 911 call. She was being racist. I was just jogging in the area. This is my jogging route, right? Or this is my bird watching route, or I'm a part of the swim team down the street, and I was just going for a swim," or something like this. And then this person will be arrested for a hate crime. In late June, a black Montclair couple said a neighbor had harassed them by questioning if they had a proper permit to install a stone patio. The husband, Fareed Nassour Hayat, said the neighbor, a white woman, falsely told police that he assaulted her after she had gone on his property 3 times in 30 minutes to question him about the permit. The couple posted a video on Facebook, which garnered nearly 1 million views, where the neighbor was accusing Hyatt of pushing her and calling for a police officer. Neighbors in the video defended Hyatt, saying that the neighbor was not pushed. And so this is the example that they give here, but this isn't going to be the typical example, right? This is not going to be like the normal example in where a situation like this occurs. In California lawmakers are trying to do the same. Passed bill to stop racist 911 calls. This was updated 2 hours ago. California lawmakers have passed a bill to prevent racially motivated 911 calls. The bill would make calling 911 to harass or violate the rights of a person based on their race, religion, or gender a hate crime. Under the new bill, such calls could result in jail time and fines. There have been many instances in recent years where people wrongfully called the police on black people. I'm sure that there have been many more instances over the past few years where black people have accused white people of doing something that they are not guilty of doing. Look at all of the hoax hate crimes. Look at the man who put a note on his car at Texas A&M. It was a racist note directed at him. Turned out to be a hoax. Turned out that he wrote it himself. Look at the more famous Jussie Smollett case, or the Bubba Smollett case, right, in the case of the NASCAR story, and all of the other fake hate crimes that have happened. Are these people being charged? Are these people being prosecuted? Are these people being charged with a hate crime because they're blaming white people for doing something that they did not do? I mean, just go to fakehatecrimes.org. You'll find a list, a very long list of all of the, or not all of them, but a lot of the recent, quote, hate crimes that were covered widely by the mainstream national media that turned out to be absolute hoaxes. Because we know that these things don't happen this way. We know that usually it's the case that hate crimes per 100,000 are committed at a higher rate by black people against white people than white people against black people. We know that it is the case that interracial attacks, like a lot of these that turn out to be hoaxes, are usually black on white. And then on top of that, add in this last story here in this section about California, which moves to consider reparations for slavery. This just came up this morning or last night, this story. California moves to consider reparations for slavery. So we're encouraging the crime. We're encouraging the crime. Politicians are encouraging the crime. The media is encouraging the crime. The media is radicalizing people to commit more crimes by not telling them the truth, by withholding the context. Then they're not prosecuting the crime. They're refusing to prosecute these people. They're releasing other people from prison. They're arresting people less. And then they're taking away all the tools that law enforcement has in order to track criminals, to catch them before they commit a very violent crime, or as they're committing a very violent crime, or catch them on suspicion of committing a crime or a shooting or something like this. And then on top of that, we're making it illegal. We're making it effectively illegal to call the police on criminals simply because they are people of color. And so, once again, the message here, as California tries to pass their reparations bill here, the message here is that we continue to give the groups of people who think the most racially and the most along the lines of skin color, we continue to give this group of people who want to see white people destroyed more and more power. More and more power. We keep ceding every tool and law we have in order to combat crime. And the message is that if you're black, or if you are a far-left terrorist communist, if you are a criminal in general, you will be protected from criminal prosecution. You will be protected from negative media coverage. And if you are defending yourself against lawlessness, especially if you are white, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and your family will be destroyed on top of that. My goal is to eventually become a powerhouse of truth. That is why it is imperative that you check the links in the description below and go to either Patreon and Subscribestar and support us for at least the cost of a cup of coffee a month. We already have writers writing for TheRedElephants.com, but we'd like to bring on more in the near future. By the way, at TheRedElephants.com, you can also find t-shirts, hats, and other products. Check the links in the description below. It helps us out tremendously.